Welcome to today's RYA training webinar on restarting inspection, predominantly for 2020 due to the interruption of the coronavirus and the outcome of COVID-19 and the temporary suspension of RYA inspections. Today, I'm joined by Rachel Andrews. Hi, Rachel, are you there?
Hiya, yeah, I'm here.
Vaughan Marsh. Hi, Vaughan.
Good afternoon.
And Chloe Andrews. Hello. We just wanted to reinforce that all of us at the RYA, especially RYA training, are wanting to make sure that you're aware that we're thinking of you, that we're constantly updating our advice and guidance to ensure that you're kept up to date with the thoughts and considerations as we look through the government's advice, and that we just want to reinforce that you stay safe and look after yourselves, especially as the easing starts from lockdown, and that you carry on remaining safe and start any activity or inspections when it's right to do so and that you feel it's right to do so. So please do carry on visiting the RYA website and training support site. Have a look at the guidance so we're constantly updating, and make sure you're familiar with what's going on at the current time. We're very aware and appreciate that the guidance is changing all the time, and we try and keep up with this as best as we can. But otherwise, if you do have any questions, please don't hesitate in contacting us. But the first port of call really is the RYA training support site or the RYA website, depending on what you're looking for. So today we're predominantly looking at the inspection and about lifting that postponement and starting them up. This will take many different forms depending on whereabouts you are, whether you're in the UK or whether you're in a centre outside of the UK. Also dependent on what scheme you're in as well. We are going to look at the priorities, so it won't be possible to inspect all our training centres this year. This presentation will also look at the preparation that we can put in place, both as an inspector but also as a training centre, and also precautions for the day and the resources that we've got available for you to have a look at and familiarise yourself with, but prior to going into an inspection or having your inspector come to you at your training centre or club. So I've already introduced the staff that are with me today. So I'm Amanda Van Santen. I'm the Chief Instructor for the Windsurfing and Sailing Scheme. I introduce you to Rachel Andrews, who's the Chief Instructor for Power, PW and Inland Waterways. Vaughan Marsh, Chief Instructor for Sail and Motor Cruising, and also we've got Chloe Andrews, the Recognitions Administrator, with us today. Myself, Rachel and Vaughan will share this presentation, so we'll all do a section each, and then we'll conclude at the end. So as I mentioned, the RYA inspections are going to start resuming shortly. We would think in the next couple of weeks, so towards the middle of July, we see inspections starting to take place in some form. We're looking through a system of prioritisation. In the UK, within the small boat scheme, this will be done via the RDOs, and they will contact the inspectors direct, who will then make contact with the centres regarding inspections. Depending on the scheme, for cruising, these will be done through the allocations that were previously done back in December, and they will stay the same. And outside of the UK, in some places, it will be necessary to carry out a virtual inspection rather than actually doing it in person due to travel restrictions around the world and potential quarantine coming back to the UK. We'll carry on continuing to update you as much as possible if anything changes, but for now, they're the parameters that we've got in place for dealing with the inspections in 2020. Also, to make you aware that there is a delay of payment into 2021 for recognition fees. And if you would like to investigate this or have any other queries to do with inspections and resuming your inspections or queries about your recognition, please don't hesitate in contacting recognition@rya.org.uk. Or it might be more applicable for you to contact your RDO with any queries. A really important point is to reinforce that the current situation and the interruption to inspections will not impact your recognition status. And as we start working through this and start to prioritise our centres and our clubs for inspections, and also utilise in some areas, a virtual inspection, it doesn't impact your recognition. So for any reason, if you aren't one of the centres that's prioritised and an inspection takes place in some form throughout 2020, please don't worry. Your recognition status is still the same. However, if you want to check that, please don't worry about contacting us directly. So how are we going to prioritise? How is that decision made? The way that we're going to look to prioritise our inspection and communicate with our inspectors is through factors such as a change of key personnel. So that could be your chief instructor, change in principal, something like that. It could be that a centre's contacted us and they've asked for an additional scheme to be added to their recognition. Perhaps a centre wasn't inspected in 2019 and therefore it becomes a priority for us to inspect at this current time. Maybe there were multiple actions from the last inspection that indicate that this should be a priority for this year. Or they could be large operations with multiple schemes running. In any of these situations, either the RDO or RYA training will contact the inspector. We'll talk to you about the allocation that needs to be done and how you're going to contact that centre, whether that centre is in the UK and it's going to be done physically, or whether it's outside the UK and there's a potentially it needs to be done virtually where a physical inspection isn't possible. As I said, just to reiterate, there may be some centres this year that won't have an inspection, but that it's not going to impact on your recognition status for this year. I'm now going to hand over to Rachel Andrews, who's going to talk a little bit more about the specifics of the day and how you can look after yourself.
Okay, so we've moved over to restarting inspections. The section now we're going to talk about the actual physicality of doing these inspections. What we really need you to do as we move forwards is inspectors and centres to work together to come up with a point that a date that's going to work for you both. And I know this is something you're well used to doing, that you've done many times before, but this year we've obviously got a much smaller window. So just be really wary that obviously as centres are restarting and starting to gather a bit of pace with some of the training they're doing, and inspectors who are not full-time inspectors by any means and they're not employed by the RYA, they also have commitments that are starting to open up. So it could be a bit of a jiggle to get that date in, but please try really hard to get that date sorted so that we can start to move things forwards. But the first thing we need to know is, are you going to open at all? So the first thing that the inspector is going to do is contact you and then try to ascertain from you whether or not you are operational as a training centre. So we need to know before we go in for an inspection that the centre is ready to go. Its equipment's there, they're either started training or about to embark on it, and we are ready for an inspection. So they've got everything in place, they've tried and tested their COVID system, so to speak, and the instructors all know what's happening and what they're up to. So before the inspection day, something that we can do to really help this along is that the centre and the inspector can liaise to get the key documentation emailed over. So this is for the inspection purposes, so the inspector can get a good handle and a read at it without having to sit for a long period of time in a training centre leafing through paperwork, physical paperwork. It's much cleaner for them to do that on a screen and for them to do that before they turn up. So as it says on there, give adequate time. They don't want to be receiving it the night before. The inspector needs to give it proper time to have a read through and to note down any questions that they've got, which they may well email you beforehand, or if they've got a decent length journey on public transport or something, then maybe they will be reading it on the way there. But there will be discussion when they get there about any questions that they've got. They're also going to check over the website. So anything that the inspector can do towards the inspection before turning up will be done, so that we're minimising the contact time between the inspector and the training centre itself. Things that the principal can be doing is you can complete the inspection report form using the editable form, which is on the training support site. And we'll come to that later on. I think Vaughan's going to point us to where those are. If you are up for your SRC radio inspection, then also complete the SRC inspection report form, just the sections that you usually complete. And any changes of recognition need to be done on the form, which is also linked on this page. So we need to get those bits and pieces out the way first. By completing those online, that's going to make things a whole lot cleaner, so that we're not having to handle too much paper. The paper isn't having to pass from yourselves to the inspector, to the RDO, into the office, and to the chief instructors as well. If we can do this online, that's going to be a whole lot less contacting of bits of paper. Use those checklists as well, the checklists that exist for each of our practical training schemes. Get those out, and then try to lay out the equipment so that if it's got any expiry dates and things, those need to be laid so they're visible. So things like the stuff that's in your safety pack on the powerboats, getting one of those open and laying equipment out on a bench or somewhere doesn't need to be inside the boat itself, but so that it can be viewed and checked without the inspector having to touch the items unless absolutely necessary. That can go a long way to helping out. And if you know that you've not got anything in for the couple of days beforehand, lay these out as early as possible. Up to 72 hours beforehand could be a good idea for that. So on the day, once they arrive at the centre, you might well have a new protocol in place at a centre. Make sure that's communicated with the inspector so that they understand what the drill is. It might be that they're having to park somewhere different to a previous visit, or that the drill is now that when you arrive on site, you text or email a number rather than going straight into reception. Whatever your new drill is, let them know so they don't fall foul of it the minute they get out of their car. We also need them to understand what face coverings are being worn at the training centre, whether you're requiring them, and that either of you could wear them. We have, obviously, anybody can wear a face covering if they choose to, but there might be some areas where it's within your operating procedures that you've decided as part of your risk assessments everybody has to wear one. Obviously being mindful of those people who may have difficulty in wearing them due to some kind of breathing difficulties. So just iron out what the situation is with face coverings at your training centre, and as soon as they arrive, brief them about how they can wash their hands. We're all very well familiar that we need to be doing frequent hand washing, so letting them know exactly where they can get hold of their hand sanitizer if you've got sanitizer units around the place, or where the hand washing facilities are. That is absolutely crucial for putting everyone's mind at rest, that we all know how we can maintain our hand hygiene. We need to try to minimize touch points, so we're going to have a much more choreographed visit to the centre, so you'll know where you're going to take them, have it planned around where you're going to go, and also to minimize the amount of people that you're coming into contact with. We're all pretty well aware of this now, the social distancing, and it will be different depending on whereabouts you are in the world, and even throughout the UK the social distances vary. So just ensure that you're fully up to speed with that, and that the centre is being used in a way that can be maintained. Once we've considered how we're going to move around the centre and which rooms the inspector will need to go to and any facilities they need to see, we're then looking at the vessels. So in particular, things like cruising vessels or powerboats, where we might have to actually get onto them. Well, you're certainly going to have to get onto the cruising vessels and probably any large powerboats. Make sure that the vessel's been set up prior, so that the equipment, as I spoke about on the previous slide, has been laid out in advance. So it's very easy for the inspector to look at and check through on the checklist without having to go squirreling around looking into any stowage points. There should only be one person on board at a time, so it needs to be laid out in a way that the inspector can spot the things they need to see, as I say, without needing to touch absolutely everything on board. Really key to get those expiry dates visible as well. So once the inspection is completed, there's a couple of bits and bobs that we all need to do. So the inspector is going to be sending in the inspection report form and the action plan as usual to the RYA, and that will be either to the RDO if it's a UK inspection, or direct to recognition if it's from abroad. All of the documentation needs to be deleted from the training centre has sent once all actions have been completed, because it may be that something needs altering within the operation procedures document, and that will need that needs to stay on the inspector's device until that has been completed, so they can see what actions, see what the changes were. And then also the report form and the action plan are going to be deleted once payment has been received from the RYA. So we are very much looking after the centre's information and the centre's IP, so to speak, so that we've not got inspectors that have got laptops full of the stuff. I'm sure they'd be pretty pleased to get rid of a whole load of things that they're having to hold on their laptop anyway. But just for peace of mind for principals, that information that you're sharing with the inspector is for the inspection, and that's the purpose of it. And once that is completed in its entirety, it will then be deleted by the inspector. The principal will also need to send an email into the RYA, be that to the inspector and also to recognition, to let us know how they're getting on with their action plan and when they've completed things. So please do make sure that happens. We've got some resources up on the website. You'll find these in the training support site. We've got a new Recognised Training Centre welcome pack, which kind of talks people through the setup of a centre and also through to that first inspection. It's a kind of a quick go-to. It doesn't at all replace the recognition guidance notes. It's just to try to make things a little bit clearer and a little bit easier and slightly shortened than that first impression of looking into the training support site, where there really is so much information. And that training support site document finder is where you'll find absolutely everything that we've got on the website that you'd be looking for. What we're going to do now is take a little look at a video which introduces the training support site and really gives you a quick look at the key features of it. And after that video, Vaughan Marsh will take on for the rest of the presentation.
Thanks, Rach. Mine's really about the support you can find to try and assist. And I suppose there's two parts to this presentation, really. One is about the inspectors and one is about the principals. And in both cases, the next few slides cover both of those areas. So I think it's fair to say that the guidance that is coming out is fast and furious. And I think everybody, including us, tries to keep up as best we can with it. And so for you as inspectors, The part of the training support site that's about restarting and restarting RYA training activity is a really good place to start looking, and also to show that to the schools so they know where you're looking at. And the same for you as principals, it's where to have a really good look at what's going on and how to find your guidance. And what we did in the training support site is we put a little area called restarting training guidance, and it was effectively a sort of research between myself and Rachel and Amanda and quite a few of the other people within the team, and also going out to our schools and looking at how, if we were going to restart training based on COVID-19, what are the things that we would be thinking about. It's not an exhaustive list, there's no doubt about it, but it hopefully will give you an idea of where the sort of things you need to think about, whether you're running a centre as a principal, or whether you're working at a school, or whether you're the inspector going to inspect that school. In all cases, you do need to follow the national and local government guidance regarding COVID-19 and particularly social distancing. And with social distancing, I think it's really important to remember that in most cases, 2 meters is safe, and under 2 meters means there needs to be something thought about. And 1 meter plus, for instance, means exactly that. It means that there must be some mitigation to make that work. And that is probably some sort of protective equipment. And also as part of your routine on the boat or whatever training area you're working in, there needs to be some sort of effective cleaning, whether it's prior to something happening or at the end of the day, or whatever that happens to be. We've tried to put the guidance wherever we possibly can. So it's on the RYA website, it's on the training support site, it's also in RYA club guidance, and also in DCMS. And we know that training centres, as I said already, have to try and find this wherever they possibly can. And obviously our legal team work quite hard at giving us the right guidance so we can get really clear information up on the website. So all those areas are available to principals and chief instructors, and please do have a look at those as you go along. That's it from us. There's one more thing I just thought I should mention, which is the inspection report forms, which Rachel mentioned earlier on. The link is actually in the slide, so if you go back up to the slides, it's on there, and it also is on the training support site. If you go to the bottom, I'm sure most of you would have used the form finder before, but if you haven't, it's a really good tool. So either training support site or just have a look at these slides. And these will be available reasonably soon on the training support site. And if you've got any questions, then please do come back to us. Thanks very much for listening.